When I was a young boy growing up, which seems like it's about 350 years ago now, the cars that I truly worship were of course the classics that every kid of the 80s and 90s did, the 911, all the Ferraris, the F40, the Jaguar XJ220 in the 90s, the McLaren F1, the Countach back in the 80s, all of these cars that I really wanted to get on board and own at some point in my life. Of course, you have to be very lucky, very blessed, or work incredibly hard to get there. But EVs did not exist. They weren't a thing back then. In fact, the only EV out there was, of course, the thing that brought you your milk overnight. Nobody wanted an EV, nobody desired an EV because they simply didn't exist. If they had, would folk aspire to own an EV? Are the kids that are growing up now aspiring to own EV cars, or are they looking at the petrol classic still? I think it's probably the latter. But this is the thought process right now. What do I do next? Now, I would absolutely consider another Taycan, but it would have to be a Gen 2, and they still have further to fall in value significantly. I think given another 18 months, 2 years, they're going to be a very, very attractive buy indeed. But also, given another 18 months, 2 years, EVs really are going to start becoming the norm. You see more and more on the roads. Of course, in the UK, they're doing per mile taxation, I think from 2028, 3p a mile on EVs. How they're going to manage that, I don't know. It sounds like another harebrained decision that the current government is making, and they're making a lot of those right now. That's a topic for another video. So EVs will absolutely become the norm, and there will be significantly more competition. For example, we know now we are getting the Yangwang. That is a very interestingly named car. I think if you can get over the schoolboy giggles about the name, it's probably going to be quite an interesting car to own. Here mate, I drive a Yangwang and I absolutely love it, it's great. Or something like that. But it is going to be a very, very interesting car indeed, with about 3 million brake horsepower. The price point is where it's going to get really interesting, because I think it's going to represent significant value. And folk who might have been looking at a Taycan new, for example, could look at one of these and think, you know what, even with the name, I'm getting significantly more bang for buck. And Yangwang is, of course, one of the luxury performance brands of BYD. And you see an awful lot of BYDs on the road these days. In fact, every week, the number of BYDs on the road seems to grow significantly. So in sort of 2 years' time, the EV landscape is going to look very different, in that we've reached this point of normalization and there's significant choice. Prices have come down, they're more compelling, batteries can be changed, battery technology, for example, solid state may be a thing as well. So lots of manufacturers still marching heavily down the road of EVs, and manufacturers who aren't traditional EV makers, the likes of which Porsche, for example, having to continue to do what they know and what their consumers want, which is, of course, combustion cars. If you're a startup, if you're a new brand in EV land, it doesn't really matter. People just want good value, reliability, and a car that ultimately works. So this is the conundrum for myself right now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of what I do next, but I really do not think I'm going to get another EV for my next car just yet. In fact, the more I look at cars that are out there, that are available, the more excited I get and the more options present themselves. There are so many great petrol cars that have come down significantly in price right now. You can get a good McLaren, you can get a good R8, you can get a good 911, maybe a 997, a 991. There is significant choice out there. And of course, the window, the opportunity to own and enjoy these cars is, I think, now, as taxation slowly bumps up for these cars and they just become harder to own. I think costs, etc. Maybe people sort of looking down their noses at you. Oh, you drive a combustion car like this one, a big stinking V8 that is still, of course, ULEZ compliant. Looking after the planet in this thing as we do, and not lining Sadiq Khan's pocket, which is probably a good thing, right? Now, I really am starting to hone in on what I want to get next. For more content for the channel, I think we've done a lot of Taycan content. There's a lot of useful info there, of course. Sub to the channel, please do, and I'll keep that content rolling. There's still plenty to discuss with Taycans, but it is a very interesting time right now. And honestly, I have to say, I am very, very excited indeed about the options that I have for the ownership of the next car. The other thing, of course, as well, is if you're buying a used car of that era, say for example you're getting a W205 C63S, something like that, you're really not going to be losing much money at all. These things, these cars of this era have really started to bottom out quite significantly, so I think it does represent a pretty safe bet getting on board with a car like that right now. So I don't think it's going to be another EV just yet, but definitely keeping an eye on those as well. Quite excited to see what comes along in the next 18 months or so in EV land. Will we ever see that EV Cayman Boxster platform? Who knows? The 983, I think it is. Anyway, that's it for this one. Do stay safe, stay well. See you on the next one, and bye for now.